just when I finally surrendered to his unconditional love after months of pushing him away, a horrific car crash shattered our newly built life. For 30 agonizing days, he stared death in the face and fought to stay, but it wasn't enough. He was gone forever. Standing at this crossroads of life, I learned the hardest truth. We often don't realize the value of a person until we lose them, but by then it is far too late. But why did fate play such a cruel game right when we finally found happiness? How did the darkness of one single night swallow up our entire future? Why, after fighting for his life in the ICU for a month, did he still have to lose? And where does this tragic journey actually end? I'm Sneha and I'm here with you today. Let's dive into the full details of this heartbreaking and emotional story. God has a twisted sense of humour, doesn't he? Or maybe it's not humour. Maybe it's just a cold, calculated experiment, a test. They say grief comes in waves, but that's a lie. Waves recede. Waves give you a moment to breathe before the next one pulls you under. This isn't a wave. This is the bottom of the ocean. It's dark. The pressure is crushing my lungs, and no matter how hard I scream, the water just fills my throat. It's been 43 days, 1 month and 13 days, 1,032 hours since the silence took over my apartment. I'm sitting on the floor of our master bedroom, the hardwood cold against my legs. Outside, the city is waking up. I can hear the distant hum of traffic on the I-95, the sound of normal people living their normal, oblivious lives. They are drinking their Starbucks, cursing at red lights, planning their weekend getaways. They have no idea that the world actually ended 43 days ago. I look at the empty side of the bed. The sheets are still unmade, frozen in time, exactly how he left them. I haven't washed his pillowcase. I'm terrified that if I do, the faint scent of his cologne, that mix of sandalwood and crisp winter air, will vanish forever. And if that scent disappears, it's like he dies all over again. But to understand why this pain feels like a physical amputation, you have to understand the beginning. You have to understand the cruel irony of how we started, because before I loved him, God help me, I hated him. We've been married for a little over 2 years. In the timeline of a life, that's nothing, a blip. But in my timeline, it was everything. Our meeting wasn't some fairy tale romance you see in the movies. It was old school, orchestrated by mutual family friends, a setup. In this modern world of dating apps and ghosting, we were a throwback. My parents loved him on paper. Ivy League education, successful career, from a respectable family with values that seem to be extinct in this country. And him, he saw me once and that was it. He was sold. He looked at me like I was the only person in the room and like he had been waiting his entire life just to learn my name. Everyone told me I hit the jackpot. He's perfect, my friends would squeal over brunch. He's handsome, he's stable, he's a unicorn, honey, in this dating market. You better lock that down. And he was. He was objectively perfect. He was tall, with eyes that held a depth I was too immature to understand back then. He was the definition of a gentleman, opening doors, pulling out chairs, listening more than he spoke. He was responsible, caring, the kind of guy who had a 5-year plan and a retirement fund and knew how to fix a leaky faucet. So we got married. The wedding was beautiful. The reception was lavish. The photos were picture perfect. But the moment the honeymoon phase was supposed to start, I shut down. I don't know what was wrong with me. Maybe I wasn't ready to settle down. Maybe I felt trapped by the sudden weight of forever. Or maybe, just maybe, his perfection terrified me. He was too good, too clean, too patient. And something in my chaotic soul wanted to break him just to see if he was real. For the first few months of our marriage, I was a nightmare. I remember one Tuesday evening vividly. He had come home early from work, exhausted, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, but instead of relaxing, he went straight to the kitchen. He knew I had a rough day at my own job. He spent an hour cooking my favourite pasta dish, the smell of garlic and basil filling the apartment. He set the table, lit a candle, a small gesture to cheer me up. When I walked in, I didn't say thank you. I looked at the food, looked at his hopeful face, and I just snapped. I'm not hungry, I said coldly, throwing my bag on the couch. Why do you always have to do this? It's suffocating. I saw the flicker of hurt in his eyes. It was there for a split second, raw and unguarded, but then he blinked and it was gone, replaced by that calm, maddeningly patient smile. It's okay, he said softly. I'll put it in Tupperware. You can have it for lunch tomorrow. Do you want some tea instead? Maybe chamomile to help you relax? I wanted to scream. I wanted him to yell at me. I wanted him to fight back, to call me a brat, to slam a door, anything to prove he was human, but he didn't. He just moved with that quiet grace, cleaning up the mess I refused to acknowledge. He treated me like I was made of glass, even when I was acting like a sledgehammer. My mood swings were volatile. I would pick fights over the stupidest things. The way he folded the towels and the radio station he listened to in the car, the fact that he breathed too loudly when I was trying to read. I was testing him. I was pushing him to the edge of the cliff, waiting for him to push back, but he never did. Not once. Instead, he would treat me like a child who didn't know how to regulate their emotions. If I was screaming, he would lower his voice. If I was being irrational, he would wait until I ran out of breath, and then he would sit me down. Like, hey, he would say, his voice deep and steady, grounding me. Let's look at this logically. If you do X, then Y happens. Is that what you want? I'm on your team here. We're partners. I treated him like an enemy and he treated me like a partner. He had this incredible mind. God, he was smart. People flocked to him. Our phone would ring at odd hours. Friends, cousins, colleagues. Everyone had a problem and everyone knew he had the solution. He was the fix-it guy. The one with the moral compass that always pointed north. He feared God in a way that was intimate and real, not performative. He lived his life by a code of honor that made me feel small and petty in comparison. I remember waking up one night, maybe 3 months into the marriage. It was 2 a.m. I turned over and saw him sitting on the prayer rug in the corner of our room, his hands raised, his head bowed. The moonlight was filtering through the blinds, casting stripes of shadow across his back. He was whispering something. I pretended to be asleep, listening closely. I expected him to be complaining about me. I expected him to be asking God for patience or asking for a way out of this marriage with a woman who treated him like dirt. But then I heard my name. He wasn't complaining. He was praying for me. He was asking God to give me peace and to take away whatever burden was making me so angry. He was asking for my happiness, even if I couldn't find it with him. I lay there in the dark, tears pricking my eyes, feeling like the worst human being on the planet. But did I change the next morning? No, my ego was a fortress and I wasn't ready to let the drawbridge down. Not yet. I kept pushing. I kept pulling away. I withheld affection. I rolled my eyes at his jokes. I made plans with my friends on weekends just to avoid spending time with him. And through it all, he just waited. He waited with the patience of a saint. He loved me when I was unlovable. He held the umbrella over me while I stood there complaining about the rain. I look back at that girl now, that ungrateful, blind girl from 2 years ago, and I want to shake her. I want to scream in her face. Wake up, I want to tell her. Look at him. Look at what you have. You have found the one soul in this universe who will love you through the storm. Don't you realise how rare that is? Don't you realise that time is running out? But I didn't know. I didn't know that the clock was already ticking. I didn't know that every time I turned my back on him in bed, I was wasting precious seconds of a countdown I couldn't see. There's a specific memory that haunts me. It was a snowy evening in December. We were walking to a dinner party downtown. I was shivering because I refused to wear the heavy coat he suggested, purely out of spite. Without a word, he took off his scarf, his favourite cashmere one, and wrapped it around my neck. I don't need it, I snapped, trying to pull it off. He caught my hands. His grip was firm but gentle. He looked me dead in the eyes at the snow falling around us like static. Keep it, he said. The way he looked at me, it wasn't just love, it was something heavier, something sadder. You're cold, and I'd rather freeze than watch you shiver. I stopped fighting him then. For a second, just a second, the ice around my heart cracked. I looked at this man, this beautiful, incredible man, and I felt a flicker of fear. Why? Why was he so good to me? What if he wasn't real? Or worse, what if I didn't deserve him? That night, for the first time, I didn't pull away when he held my hand in the Uber. I let his warmth seep into my frozen fingers. I didn't know it then, but the dynamic was shifting. The wall was about to come down. But looking back now, sitting in this empty room with the ghosts of my mistakes, I get a chill that has nothing to do with the air conditioning. Because that perfection, that saint-like patience, that uncanny ability to forgive me no matter how cruel I was, it feels different now. It doesn't feel like just love anymore. It feels like a goodbye. It feels like his soul knew something that we didn't, like he was loving me on borrowed time, like he was trying to pack a lifetime of affection into a few short years because he knew he wouldn't be here for the long haul. I should have seen the signs. I should have realised that a flame that burns that bright, that pure, cannot last in this windy world. But I was blind, and by the time I opened my eyes, by the time I finally learned to love him back, fate was already revving its engine, waiting for us on a dark highway. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, isn't that he's gone, it's that I wasted the beginning. And now I have to live with the end. But you need to know how the ice melted. You need to know how I fell, because the higher you climb, the harder you fall. And God, did we fall hard. There is a specific kind of silence that exists in an unhappy marriage. It's not the peaceful silence of a library or the comfortable silence of a long road trip. It is a heavy, pressurized silence. It's the sound of a bomb ticking down, but the time it is hidden somewhere in the walls, and you don't know when it's going to go off. That was our apartment for the first 6 months, a minefield. I was the ice, cold, sharp, unyielding. He was the fire, not a raging, destructive inferno, but a steady, hearth-like warmth that refused to be extinguished, no matter how much water I threw on it. I remember waking up on a Saturday morning in November. The sky was that dreary, slate grey colour you get in the northeast before the real snow hits. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to him moving around in the kitchen. The smell of pancakes and freshly brewed coffee drifted under the door. It made me nauseous, not because I didn't like pancakes, but because I knew what they represented. They represented his effort, his relentless, exhausting effort to make this work. And every time he tried, it made me feel like a failure. It made me feel like the villain in my own life story. I walked out into the kitchen wearing my oversized hoodie, my hair a mess. He was standing by the stove flipping a pancake with a level of concentration that should be reserved for brain surgery. He looked back at me, his face lighting up with that genuine, eager smile. "Good morning," he said. "I made blueberry, your favourite." I looked at the stack of golden brown pancakes. I looked at the perfectly set table. I looked at him. "I'm not hungry," I muttered, walking past him to get a glass of water. The smile didn't falter. "Okay, well, I'll leave them here just in case. We have that dinner at my aunt's house tonight, remember? 7 p.m. I slammed the glass down on the counter a little too hard. "Do we have to go? You know I hate your aunt. She always asks me when I'm getting a real job." I was working freelance graphic design at the time and I was insecure about it. I knew his family didn't mean any harm, but I projected my insecurities onto them. I wanted a fight. I needed a fight. The adrenaline of an argument felt better than the numbness of guilt. He turned off the stove. He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. He didn't look angry. He looked thoughtful, like he was solving a complex equation. "Sneha," he said, his voice low, "we don't have to go if you're not up for it. I can make an excuse. I can say you have a migraine." I froze. That wasn't the script. The script was, I complain, he gets annoyed, we fight, I storm off. "Why would you do that?" I asked, suspicious. "Because," he walked over to me, stopping just a few inches away. He didn't touch me, but I could feel the heat radiating off him. "Because you look tired. You look like you're fighting a war inside your head, and I don't want to add to it. If staying home and ordering pizza helps you win that war today, then that's what we'll do." I stared at him. My mouth opened, but no words came out. Who was this man? Was he real? Was he a robot programmed by my parents to be the perfect husband? Or was he a sociopath playing the long game? In my cynicism, I couldn't accept that someone could just be good. I couldn't accept that his kindness didn't have a price tag attached to it. In my experience, everything in life was a transaction. You give something, you get something. But he was giving, and getting nothing but attitude in return. "I'll go," I snapped, purely out of confusion. I don't need your pity." He just nodded. "Okay, whatever you want." That night at the dinner, I was on my worst behaviour. I was distant. I checked my phone at the table. When his aunt made a snide comment about my little art hobbies, I was ready to snap back with something venomous. But before I could open my mouth, he spoke up. "Actually, Auntie," his voice cut through the chatter, firm and authoritative. The table went quiet. "Sneha just landed a contract with a major tech firm downtown. Her hobby pays more per hour than most people make in a week. I'm incredibly proud of her talent. It's rare," he lied. Well, it was a half-truth. I was pitching to a tech firm, but I hadn't landed it yet. But he said it with such conviction, such pride, that his aunt shut her mouth instantly. He looked at me, winking almost imperceptibly under the table. His hand found mine. fine. I tried to pull away, but he held on. And not tightly, just securely, like an anchor. And for the first time in months, I didn't fight the current. I let him hold my hand. But don't think that was the moment everything changed. No, the ice was thick. It takes more than one warm hand to melt a glacier. The real breaking point, the moment that scared me into loving him, happened 2 weeks later. I had been pushing him hard. I was picking fights about money, about his friends, about the way he chewed. I was acting like a spoiled brat because I was terrified. I was starting to feel things for him. And feelings meant vulnerability. Vulnerability meant I could get hurt. So my defense mechanism was to make him hate me so he would leave before I could fall for him. It was a Tuesday night. He was working late in his home office. He was a consultant and he had a massive deadline the next morning. Papers were spread everywhere. His laptop was open. He was stressed. I could tell by the way he was rubbing his temples. I walked in with a mug of hot tea. I told myself I was bringing it to be nice, but deep down, a dark part of me wanted to disturb him. I wanted to see if I could break his concentration. Here, I said, setting the mug down on the desk. I set it down too hard or maybe too close to the edge. I don't know if it was an accident or a subconscious act of sabotage, but the mug tipped. Hot, scalding tea flooded across the desk. It soaked his papers. It splashed onto the keyboard of his MacBook. Oh my God, I gasped, jumping back. The screen flickered and went black. The papers, contracts, notes, weeks of work were turning into a brown, soggy mush. I stood there paralysed. I had just destroyed his work. This was it. This was the moment he would finally snap. He would scream at me. He would tell me I was a useless, clumsy burden. I braced myself for the explosion. I closed my eyes, waiting for the yelling. I heard the chair scrape back. I heard him move quickly around the desk. Sneha! He grabbed my arm. I flinched, pulling back. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Show me your hand, he commanded. His voice was urgent, panicked. What? The tea. It was boiling. Did it hit your hand? He wasn't looking at the computer. He wasn't looking at the ruined contracts that were currently dripping onto the carpet. He was looking at my wrist. There was a tiny red mark where a few drops had splattered. You burned? He said, his face twisting in pain as if he were the one hurt. It's just a drop, I stammered, looking at the dead laptop. Your computer, your work, it's gone. Screw the computer, he said, dragging me toward the bathroom. We need to run this under cold water. That skin is delicate. He turned on the tap and held my wrist under the cool stream. He was so gentle. He used a soft towel to dab the area. He went to the medicine cabinet and found the burn cream, applying it with the focus of a doctor. I stared at him. I looked at the chaos in the other room. Thousands of dollars of damage, likely a missed deadline, a furious client. And then I looked at him. He was blowing softly on my wrist to cool it down. Why? I whispered. My voice broke. He looked up, his eyes confused. Why what? Why aren't you yelling at me? Tears started to well up in my eyes. I just ruined everything. I'm a disaster. I've been terrible to you for months. I treat you like garbage and I just destroyed your work. Why are you helping me? Why don't you hate me? He stopped. He put the cap back on the cream. He took both of my hands in his. The bathroom was quiet and the only sound was the dripping faucet. Sneha, he said, and for the first time I saw a crack in his composure. I saw how tired he was. You think a laptop matters more than you? You think a contract is worth more than your skin? He stepped closer, invading my personal space, but this time I didn't retreat. I made a vow, he said intense, his eyes searching mine. I promised God that I would take care of you, that I would protect you, even from yourself. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know you're struggling. I know you're not happy yet, and maybe I'm not the man you wanted, but I am the man you have. And as long as I have breath in my lungs, I am not going to let you get hurt. Not by the world, and certainly not by a cup of tea. He gave me a tired, crooked smile. I can buy a new laptop. I can rewrite the contracts. I can't replace you. Something inside me shattered. The wall I had built, brick by brick, insult by insult, just collapsed. I started to cry. Ugly, heaving sobs. All the anger, the fear, the confusion of the last 6 months came pouring out, and he didn't say a word. He just pulled me into his chest. He wrapped his arms around me and held me while I ruined his shirt with my mascara and snot. He held me like I was the most precious thing in the world, even though I had just acted like a wrecking ball. That was the night the ice melted. That was the night I realised that this man wasn't playing a game. He wasn't wearing a mask. He was real. He was terrifyingly, beautifully real. I fell asleep in his arms that night. For the first time, we slept in the same bed, not as strangers, but as something else. I woke up the next morning feeling lighter. The sun was shining. I looked at his sleeping face, the way his eyelashes rested against his cheeks, and I felt a surge of something warm in my chest, a seed of hope. I thought that was the victory. I thought we had won. I thought, finally, now we can start living. But looking back now, God, it makes me sick, because that wasn't a victory, it was a setup. The universe was letting me fall in love with him just so it would hurt more when he was ripped away, because there was something I didn't notice that night. While he was holding me, while he was consoling me about my tiny burn, he was rubbing his left arm. He winced once or twice when he lifted me up. I asked him about it the next day. Just a muscle strain, he had laughed, dismissing it. Must have slept funny. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was young. He was healthy. He was invincible. But now that I replay the tapes in my head, I wonder, was it a muscle strain? Or was it the first warning shot? Was his body already beginning to fail him, even as his heart was winning me over? We were so busy fixing us that we didn't see the shadow creeping up behind him. I finally let him in. I finally opened the door to my heart. But I forgot to check if the Grim Reaper was standing on the porch waiting for an invitation too. The surrender didn't happen with a white flag. It happened with a fever. We like to think we are in control of our hearts. We think we can ration out our love like war supplies, a little bit here, a little bit there, keeping the rest locked in a bunker so nobody can steal it. I was the queen of rationing. Even after the tea incident, even after the ice had started to thaw, I was still keeping score. I was still holding back the deepest part of myself, and terrified that if I gave him everything, I would have nothing left when he inevitably disappointed me. But biology doesn't care about your emotional walls. Biology is brutal. It was mid-January. A nor'easter was battering the East Coast, burying the city in 2 feet of snow. The wind was howling against our apartment windows like a wild animal trying to get in. I went to bed feeling fine, maybe a little scratch in my throat, but nothing a Hall's drop couldn't fix. By 2 a.m, I was dying. Okay, I wasn't technically dying, but it felt like it. It hit me like a freight train, influenza A, or maybe some mutant viral strain from hell. I woke up shaking so hard, my teeth were chattering audibly. My skin felt like it was on fire, but my bones felt like they were encased in ice. I tried to sit up, but the room spun violently. A wave of nausea rolled over me, and I barely made it to the edge of the bed before I started dry heaving. The lamp snapped on instantly. Sneha! His voice was thick with sleep, but the moment he saw me, the sleep vanished. I was a mess, sweaty, shaking, gasping for air. I can't, I choked out. He didn't ask stupid questions. He didn't ask, are you okay? Because clearly I wasn't. He moved with military precision. He was out of bed and at my side in a nanosecond. He placed a hand on my forehead and his eyes went wide. You're burning up, he whispered. You're literally burning. He scooped me up. I'm not a small girl and I was dead weight at that moment, but he lifted me like I was made of feathers. He carried me to the bathroom and set me down on the closed toilet lid. Stay here, do not move. He started the shower, adjusting the temperature until it was lukewarm. Not cold enough to shock me, but cool enough to bring the fever down. He stripped off his t-shirt, tossing it into the corner. I need to get you in there, he said, his voice steady but urgent. Your temperature is too high. We need to lower it before you seize. I was too weak to be embarrassed. I was too weak to protest. I just nodded, tears of misery leaking from my eyes. He helped me out of my soaked pajamas. There was zero lust in his eyes. There was only a fierce, protective focus. He was a medic in the trenches and he guided me into the water, holding me upright because my legs were like jelly. The water hit me and I gasped. I started to shiver violently again. I know, he soothed, stepping into the shower with me, still in his pajama pants. He didn't care that he was getting soaked. He pulled me against his chest, letting his body heat stabilise me while the water ran over us. I know it's cold. I've got you. Just breathe. I buried my face in his wet chest. I could hear his heart hammering against his ribs. Thump, 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 thump. It was beating so fast. He was terrified. He was terrified of losing me. We stayed like that for 20 minutes, me shaking and sobbing in the shower, him holding me, whispering prayers in my ear, stroking my wet hair. You're okay, he kept whispering. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, I promise. When the fever finally broke enough for me to stop shaking, he turned the water off. He wrapped me in the fluffiest towel we owned. He dried me off with a tenderness that made my chest ache. He carried me back to bed, which he had somehow stripped and remade with fresh, cool sheets while I was zoning out. He didn't sleep that night. night. Not for a single second. I drifted in and out of a fever dream. Every time I opened my eyes, he was there. At 3 a.m, he was holding a glass of Gatorade to my lips, forcing me to take small sips. At 4:30 a.m, he was applying a cold compress to my forehead, replacing it every 10 minutes. At 6 a.m, he was on the phone with the pharmacy, arguing with someone to get a prescription delivered the second they opened. In my delirium, I watched him. I watched the way the lamplight hit the worry lines on his forehead. I watched the way his hand trembled slightly when he brushed a strand of hair off my face. And in that haze of sickness, the truth hit me harder than the flu. This man would die for me. It wasn't a metaphor. It wasn't a romance novel line. It was a cold, hard fact. If a gunman walked into this room right now, he would step in front of the bullet without blinking. If the building caught fire, he would throw me out the window and burn. And what had I done to deserve this? Nothing. I'd been a brat. I'd been cold. I'd been selfish. I looked at him, sitting in the chair next to the bed, his head in his hands. He looked exhausted, defeated. Hey, I croaked. My throat felt like sandpaper. His head snapped up. Hey, you were awake. How's the pain? Do you need more Tylenol? Come here, I whispered. He hesitated. I don't want to crowd you. You need rest, please. He stood up and sat on the edge of the bed. I reached out. My hand was still shaking and grabbed his wrist. Why? I asked again. The same question from the tea incident, but this time the answer mattered more. Why what? He asked softly. Why do you love me this much? I'm terrible to you. He looked at me for a long time. The silence stretched, heavy and profound. You're not terrible, he said. You're just guarded. There's a difference. He took my hand and kissed the knuckles. Sneha, love isn't about what you get in return, and that's business. Love is about seeing someone, really seeing them and deciding that their happiness is more important than your own. I see you. I see the kind heart you hide under all that armour, and I'm willing to wait as long as it takes for you to take the armour off. The wall crumbled. It didn't just crack. It disintegrated. It turned to dust and blew away. I pulled on his hand. Come to bed. I'll get you sick, he protested weakly. I don't care, I said. I can't sleep without you. Please. He climbed in. He was careful not to touch me too much, afraid of hurting me, but I scooted backward until my back was pressed against his chest. I felt his arm wrap around my waist, pulling me in tight, and for the first time in my life, I felt safe. Truly, completely safe. I love you, I whispered into the darkness. I felt him freeze. His breath hitched. I had never said it, not once, not on our wedding day. I mumbled it, not in the 2 years since. What did you say? His voice was shaky. I love you, I said louder, turning around to face him. I looked into his tired, red-rimmed eyes. I love you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. He didn't say anything. He just buried his face in my neck and let out a long, shuddering breath. I felt wetness on my skin. He was crying. My strong, stoic, perfect husband was crying because I finally loved him back. We stayed in bed for 3 days. He called in sick to work, something he never did. We ordered soup. We watched terrible movies on Netflix. We talked. We talked about everything. We talked about his childhood, about my fears, about the future. We planned a trip to Italy for the summer. We talked about baby names. He liked Noah. I liked Aiden. It was the happiest 3 days of my life. It was like the sun had finally come out after a 2-year winter. I was giddy. I was obsessed with him. I couldn't stop touching him, smelling him, laughing at his jokes. I was making up for lost time. But remember what I said about the suspense, about the feeling that something is wrong? It started on the 3rd day. I was feeling much better. I was in the kitchen making toast. He was in the shower. I heard a loud thud from the bathroom. It wasn't the sound of a shampoo bottle falling. It was heavy, like a body. Honey, I called out, freezing. Silence. Babe, you okay? My heart hammered against my ribs. I ran to the bathroom door. I'm coming in. I pushed the door open. He was leaning against the sink, gripping the porcelain so hard his knuckles were white. He was breathing heavily. His head hung low, water dripping from his hair onto the mat. What happened? I rushed to him, grabbing his arm. He looked up. His face was pale, paler than usual. There was a look in his eyes, just for a split second, of pure confusion, like he didn't know where he was. I slipped, he said, shaking his head as if to clear it. He forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Clumsy, just like you. You didn't slip, I said, my stomach twisting. I heard a thud. Did you faint? No, he waved me off, standing up straighter. He turned off the water. I just got a little dizzy, probably the steam, and I haven't eaten much these past few days, taking care of you. He grabbed a towel and started drying off, avoiding my gaze. I'm fine, Sneha. Really? Stop stop looking at me like I'm the patient. You're the one who was hallucinating 2 days ago. He kissed my forehead, dismissed it, and walked out of the bathroom. I stood there staring at the wet footprints on the tile. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe it was just dehydration, just exhaustion from nursing me back to health. But as I looked at the mirror, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the edge of the sink, right where he'd been gripping it, there was a small smear of blood. He had nosebleeds sometimes. He said it was the dry winter air. But combined with the dizziness, combined with the arm pain from weeks ago, a voice in the back of my head, a quiet, nasty little voice, whispered, "It's starting." I washed the blood away quickly, as if scrubbing it out would make the fear go away. I went back into the bedroom. He was getting dressed, whistling a cheerful tune. He looked fine. He looked handsome. He looked alive. I pushed the fear down. I locked it in the basement of my mind. We were happy now. We were finally in love. God wouldn't be cruel enough to ruin this. Not now. Not when we were just getting started. I walked over to him and hugged him from behind, burying my face in his back. Promise me we'll go to Italy, I murmured. He turned around, wrapping his arms around me. I promise. Italy, France, the moon, wherever you want. He kissed me. It was deep, passionate, full of life. But as his lips touched mine, I couldn't shake the metallic taste of fear. Because promises are fragile things, and the Grim Reaper doesn't care about your vacation plans. We had entered the golden age of our marriage, but we didn't know we were walking straight into a trap. Happiness, I learned, is terrifying. Sadness is predictable. It has a flaw. You hit rock bottom. You lay there. You wallow. But happiness is like standing on a glass platform suspended 10,000 feet in the air. The view is breathtaking. The adrenaline is intoxicating, but every single second you are acutely, painfully aware that there is nothing holding you up but a transparent sheet of luck. For the next few months we lived on that platform. We called it our life. In reality, it was a golden cage. It was the spring of our second year. The ice age of our marriage was over. The thaw of the flu was behind us. Now we were in full bloom. If you looked at our Instagram stories, you would have hated us. We were that couple. The annoying, nauseatingly perfect couple that finishes each other's sentences and holds hands in the produce aisle of Whole Foods. I became obsessed with him. It was a total 180. The man I used to avoid was now the centre of my universe. I waited by the door for him to come home from work like a golden retriever. When his key turned in the lock, my heart would do this ridiculous little flip. "Honey, I'm home," he'd call out, a playful lilt in his voice, and I would tackle him with a hug, burying my nose in his coat, inhaling that scent of sandalwood and city air. He helped me with everything. In this fast-paced American life where everyone is drowning in chores and deadlines, he was my anchor. On Sundays, we had a ritual. We'd blast old school R&B in the living room while we cleaned. He'd be vacuuming, dancing with the Dyson, making me laugh until my stomach hurt. You missed a spot, I'd tease from the couch. "I never miss." He'd wink, turning the vacuum off to pull me up for a slow dance right there on the carpet amidst the dust bunnies. He treated me like I was fragile, precious china. If I sneezed, he was there with a tissue. If I mentioned a craving for Thai food at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, 30 minutes later, there was pad Thai on the table. I started praying, not just the ritualistic motions, but real, desperate conversations with God. "Thank you," I would whisper in the dark while he slept beside me. "Thank you for giving him to me. Please don't let me mess this up. Please let me keep him." Our friends noticed the shift. We went to a barbecue at a friend's house in the suburbs one weekend. Usually at these things, I'd stick to the wives, complaining about husband habits. But this time, I couldn't stop looking at him across the yard. He was manning the grill, laughing with the guys, flipping burgers, and the sun caught his profile, and he looked regal. "You guys are disgusting," my friend Sarah joked, nudging me in a good way. "But seriously, the way he looks at you, it's intense, Sneha. It's like he's trying to memorize your face." I laughed it off. "He's just dramatic." "No," Sarah said, her voice turning serious. "It's rare. Don't take it for granted." I didn't. I swear to God, I didn't. I soaked up every ounce of his love. I became a better person because of him. I stopped being petty. I stopped holding grudges. His kindness was infectious. He was the go-to guy for everyone. If someone needed a ride to the airport at 4 a.m, call him. If a cousin needed help moving apartments, call him. "You need to learn to say no," I scolded him one night as he was putting on his shoes to go help a neighbour jumpstart their car in the rain. "It takes 10 minutes, babe." He smiled, kissing my forehead. Service to others is service to God. Plus, imagine if it was you stranded out there. He was perfect. But looking back, the perfection was the trap, because when everything is going right, you stop looking for what's going wrong. The signs were there. They were subtle, like cracks in a windshield, barely visible until the light hits them just right. He was tired. Not just long day at the office tired. It was a bone-deep exhaustion. He started taking naps on weekends, which he never used to do. He'd sit down on the couch to watch a game, and 5 minutes later, he'd be out cold, his breathing heavy, and the headaches. He started keeping a bottle of Excedrin in his car in his briefcase on the nightstand. Just stress, he'd say when I caught him rubbing his temples. Big project coming up, staring at screens all day. I bought it. Why wouldn't I? We live in a hustle culture. Everyone is tired. Everyone has headaches. I didn't know that his brain was betraying him. I didn't know that the vessel holding his beautiful soul was starting to leak. There was one moment about a week before the accident that should have made me scream. We were at the mall walking down the escalator. He was a step ahead of me. Suddenly, he stumbled. His knee just buckled. He grabbed the handrail, swaying dangerously. Babe! I grabbed his jacket to steady him. He blinked rapidly, looking around like he didn't know where he was for a split second. Then the mask slammed back into place. Whoops! He laughed, but the laugh was thin. Tripped on my shoelace? I looked down. His shoelaces were tied tight. You didn't trip, I said, a cold dread pooling in my stomach. You got dizzy again. I'm fine, Sneha. Seriously, I just need lunch. Low blood sugar. He steered me toward the food court, changing the subject, making jokes, distracting me with his charm, and I let him. Because I wanted to stay in the golden cage, I didn't want to acknowledge the lock clicking shut. I didn't want to admit that my invincible husband was failing. Then came the day the universe decided to cash in its check. It was a Friday. The weather had been weird all week. Humid, heavy, with storms threatening to break, but never actually raining. The air felt charged, like static electricity. We had plans to stay in, movie night, popcorn, just us. He came home early, looking surprisingly energized. He seemed happier than usual, almost manic. He brought me flowers, white lilies, just because, he said, handing them to me. We had a beautiful dinner. We talked about the future. He talked about buying a house in the suburbs, somewhere with a big yard for kids. I want a swing set, he said, his eyes dreamy, and a tree house. I never had a tree house. You're 30 years old, I laughed. But you're going to break the tree. I'll build a strong tree house, he said seriously, strong enough for us. Around 9:30 p.m, his phone rang. The sound cut through the cozy atmosphere like a knife. He looked at the caller ID and sighed. It was a distant friend of his. Mark. Mark was going through a rough divorce and had a habit of getting into trouble. Hello, he answered, putting it on speaker. Bro, I messed up. Mark's voice was slurring. He was drunk. I don't know where I am. I think I hit a guardrail. Car won't start. Are you hurt? My husband's voice switched instantly to crisis mode. Nah, just stuck. Tow truck said 3 hours. It's dark, man. I'm scared. My husband hung up and stood up. I have to go get him. No, I said immediately. The word flew out of my mouth before I could think. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Sneha, he's stranded on the I-95. He's drunk. If the cops find him, he's done. Or worse, he gets hit. Let him call an Uber. I pleaded, and I stood up, blocking his path. Please, don't go. I have a bad feeling. I wasn't lying. The hair on my arms was standing up. My chest felt tight. It was a primal instinct, a caveman brain warning that said, danger, do not leave the cave. He stopped. He put his hands on my shoulders and looked down at me. His eyes were so soft, so full of that maddening compassion. Babe, it's Mark. He has nobody else. If I don't go, who will? Why does it always have to be you? I shouted, tears stinging my eyes. Why do you have to be the saviour? Because I can be, he said simply, and because if I was stuck, I'd want someone to come for me. He kissed my forehead. It was a long, lingering kiss. I'll be back in an hour, he whispered against my skin. Keep the popcorn warm. We'll watch the movie when I get back. I promise. I promise. Those 2 words. The most dangerous words in the English language. I watched him put on his jacket. I watched him grab his keys. I watched him walk to the door. At the threshold, he turned back. He looked at me one last time. Ideally, this is the part where I tell you, he said something profound, but he didn't. He just smiled that lopsided, boyish smile and said, love you. Don't eat all the chocolate. Then the door clicked shut. I heard his footsteps fading down the hallway. I heard the elevator ding. I walked to the window and looked down at the street. I saw him jog to his car, our silver SUV. I saw the headlights flick on, cutting through the darkness. I saw him pull out into the street. I watched until his taillights minutes were just 2 red dots in the distance, and then they were gone. I sat down on the couch. The apartment felt suddenly, violently empty. I tried to watch TV, but I couldn't focus. I checked the clock. 9:45 p.m. 10:15 p.m. 10:45 p.m. He should have been there by now, or at least called to say he had picked Mark up. I texted him. Everything okay? No reply. The little delivered bubble appeared, but not read. 11 p.m. I called him. Straight to voicemail. Hi, you've reached the voicemail of... I hung up. I called again, voicemail. I called Mark, voicemail. My heart began to beat a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It wasn't just anxiety anymore. It was terror. Pure, unadulterated terror. I started pacing the living room. He's fine, I told myself. His battery died. Signal is bad on the highway. He's fine, he's fine, he's fine. 11:23 p.m. My phone rang. I lunged for it, almost tripping over the coffee table. I didn't check the ID. I just swiped to answer. Where are you? I screamed into the phone. I've been calling for an hour. There was a pause on the other end, a pause that lasted a lifetime. And then a voice I didn't recognise spoke. A voice that was professional, calm and utterly devastating. Is this Mrs. Sneha? Yes, I whispered. My knees gave out. I sank to the floor. Ma'am, this is Officer Daniels from the State Highway Patrol. I'm calling regarding your husband's vehicle. The world stopped spinning. The sound of the traffic outside vanished. The air left the room. Is he? I couldn't say the word. Ma'am, there's been an accident, a severe collision. He's being airlifted to General Hospital Trauma Centre. You need to get there now. I dropped the phone. The golden cage had shattered. And as I scrambled for my keys, blinded by tears running out the door into the night that had swallowed him whole, I realised one thing. The happiness was never a gift. It was the setup for the slaughter. I don't remember putting my shoes on. I don't remember locking the apartment door. Trauma has a way of erasing the in-between moments. It edits your memory in real time, cutting out the boring parts and leaving you only with the horror. 1 minute I was standing in my living room with the phone on the floor. The next minute I was in my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles looked like they were about to burst through the skin. I was screaming. I wasn't making any sound, but inside my head I was screaming so loud it drowned out the engine. Please, God, please, take anything. Take my job. Take the apartment. Take my arm. Just don't take him. I drove like a maniac. I ran 2 red lights. I cut off a taxi that honked long and hard at me, but the sound felt distant, like it was coming from underwater. I was driving down the I-95, the same highway he had taken less than an hour ago. The city rushed by in a blur of neon and darkness. The world looked exactly the same as it did yesterday. People were walking their dogs. Teenagers were vaping on street corners. How? How could the world keep spinning when the axis had just snapped? I reached the hospital in record time. I abandoned the car in the emergency drop-off zone. I didn't care if they towed it. I didn't care if they crushed it into a cube. The automatic doors of the ER slid open with a whoosh, and the smell hit me. That specific, terrifying cocktail of rubbing alcohol, stale coffee, and human misery. Where is he? I gasped, running up to the front desk. My hair was wild, my face probably streaked with tears, my jacket buttoned wrong. The nurse behind the glass didn't look up immediately. She was typing. Name? She asked, bored. My husband. I slammed my hand on the counter. He was brought in by ambulance. Car accident. Just now. She looked up then, startled by my hysteria. Name, ma'am? I gave it. My voice broke on the last syllable. She typed it in. Her face changed. The boredom vanished, replaced by a look of pity that made my stomach drop through the floor. Honey, she said softly, you need to wait right here. I'm going to get the doctor. No, just tell me where he is. Wait here. She disappeared. I stood there vibrating. Every nerve ending in my body was on fire. I looked around the waiting room. A kid with a broken arm, an old man coughing, normal emergencies, fixable emergencies. Then a door swung open. A tall man in a police uniform walked out. He looked tired. He was holding a clear plastic bag. Officer Daniels. He spotted me immediately. I must have looked like the only person whose life was imploding. Mrs. Sneha. I ran to him. Where is he? Is he okay? Tell me he's okay. The officer took off his hat. He looked young, maybe only a few years older than us. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. Ma'am, please come sit down. I don't want to sit, I screamed. Tell me what happened. He guided me to a corner of the room away from the staring eyes. Your husband. He arrived at the scene where his friend was stranded, the officer began, his voice low and steady. He had pulled over to the shoulder. He was out of the car helping his friend change a tyre. I nodded frantically. That sounded like him. Of course he was helping. A semi-truck, the officer continued, and his voice hitched slightly. The driver fell asleep at the wheel. He drifted onto the shoulder. He was going about 70 miles per hour. I stopped breathing. The physics of it hit me. 70 miles per hour, metal against flesh. Did the truck hit the car? I whispered. The officer looked down at his boots. It hit the car, ma'am, but your husband, he pushed his friend out of the way. He took the impact. The world tilted on its side. He saved Mark. Of course he did, because that's who he was, the hero, the martyr. Is he alive? I asked. The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Barely, the officer said, brutally honest. The paramedics, they had to revive him twice in the ambulance. He's in surgery now. Trauma 1. It's bad, ma'am. I'm not going to lie to you. He handed me the plastic bag. Inside were his things. His wallet, his watch. The face was cracked. His wedding ring, it was bent. The gold band, the symbol of our forever, was crushed into an oval shape. I took the bag. It felt heavy. It felt like I was holding his ghost. Can I see him? Not yet. They're working on him. I sat in that waiting room for 4 hours. 4 hours of hell. Every time the double doors opened, I jumped up. Every time a doctor came out, my heart stopped. I watched families come and go. I watched a woman get told her husband had a mild concussion. She's cried with relief. I hated her. I hated her so much in that moment for having the good news. Finally, at 3:45 a.m, a surgeon came out. He was still wearing his scrubs. They were stained with something dark. Blood. My husband's blood. Family of the trauma patient, he called out. I was on my feet before he finished the sentence. I'm his wife. The surgeon looked exhausted. He had deep circles under his eyes. He motioned for me to follow him. We walked down a long, sterile hallway. The lights were too bright. The silence was too loud. We did everything we could in the OR, he said, not looking at me. He had massive internal bleeding, a ruptured spleen, collapsed lung, multiple fractures in his legs and ribs, and severe head trauma. He stopped in front of a set of double doors. We managed to stabilise him, he said. I let out a sob of relief. Oh, thank God, thank God. Mrs. He interrupted me, his voice sharp. Stabilised does not mean saved. He is in a deep coma. His brain is swelling. We've had to put him on a ventilator. He cannot breathe on his own. He looked me in the eye. The next 24 hours are critical. If the swelling goes down, he has a chance. If it doesn't, he didn't finish the sentence and he didn't have to. Can I see him? I begged, please. I just need to hold his hand. 5 minutes, the doctor said. Don't touch the wires. He opened the doors. I walked into the ICU. The room was cold. It was filled with the rhythmic beeping of machines. Beep, beep, beep. The soundtrack of life hanging by a thread. And there, in the centre of the room, lay a stranger. That wasn't my husband. My husband was vibrant. He was warm. He had a laugh that filled a room. The man in the bed was pale, almost grey. His face was swollen and bruised, purple and blue. There was a tube down his throat, taped to his mouth. Wires were attached to his chest, a bandage wrapped around his head. He looked small. He looked broken. I walked to the side of the bed. My legs felt like lead. I reached out and touched his hand, the only part of him that didn't look damaged. It was cold. I flinched. He was always so warm. He was my heater in the winter. Now he felt like marble. Hey, I whispered. My voice sounded foreign in the quiet room. I'm here. I'm right here. The machine beeped in response. I looked at the monitor. Lines going up and down, numbers flashing. That was him. That squiggly green line was the only thing keeping me from being a widow. You promised, I choked out, tears finally spilling over hot and fast. You promised you'd be back in an hour. You promised we'd watch the movie. You liar. You beautiful, stupid liar. I gripped his cold hand. I squeezed it, hoping, praying for a squeeze back. Nothing, just the limp weight of his fingers. Wake up, I hissed. Don't you dare leave me. We just started. We just got to the good part. You can't leave during the good part. Suddenly, the monitor started beeping faster. A high-pitched alarm began to ring. The numbers on the screen plummeted. BP. 60/40ths, 50/30ths. What's happening? I screamed, looking around. The doors burst open. Nurses swarmed in. The doctor ran back in. Code blue! Someone yelled. He's crashing! Get the cart! No, I yelled. No, no, no. Ma'am, you have to leave. A nurse grabbed my arm, pulling me back. I'm not leaving him! I fought her. I clawed at her. That's my husband. Don't you touch him. Charge her 200, the doctor shouted. I saw them rip open his gown. I saw them place the paddles on his chest, the chest I had slept on just last night. Clear! Thump. His body arched off the bed violently and slammed back down. Still no pulse. Charge to 300. Clear! Thump. I was screaming his name. I was on my knees in the hallway being held back by a security guard, watching through the glass as they electrocuted the love of my life. Come back, I wailed. Come back to me. It felt like an eternity. And then beep, beep, beep. The rhythm returned. Slow, Weak, but there. The doctor looked up at the window, locking eyes with me. He shook his head slightly. He was alive, but the war had just begun. I slumped against the wall, sliding down to the cold floor. I pulled my knees to my chest and rocked back and forth. This was day one. I didn't know it then, but I had 29 more days of this torture left. 29 more days of watching him fade. 29 more days of begging a God who seemed to have stopped listening. I looked at his wedding ring, still clutched in my hand. The gold was dented. The circle was broken. And deep down, in the place where intuition lives, I knew the man who walked out of our apartment 3 hours ago was never coming back. Even if he woke up, the man I loved had died on that highway. Whatever was left in that bed was just the echo of a song that had already ended. But I wasn't ready to stop listening, not yet. The intensive care unit does not have clocks. They remove them on purpose. They know that if you watch the seconds tick by, you would go insane. So time becomes fluid. It stretches and snaps like a rubber band. A minute feels like a decade. A week blurs into a single grey afternoon. Welcome to Purgatory, 4th floor, bed 12. For the next 30 days, I ceased to be a human woman. I became a piece of furniture in the hospital room. I stopped eating. I stopped showering until the nurses forced me to. I survived on vending machine coffee and the terrified hope that maybe, just maybe, the universe had made a clerical error. Day 3, the swelling. He looked like a monster. I say that with all the love in my shattered heart, but it's the truth. The man lying in that bed was unrecognisable. His head had swelled to twice its normal size. His eyes were taped shut because the lids were so puffy they couldn't close on their own. His skin was a translucent yellow from the failing liver. I sat by his bedside reading to him. I read him his favourite sports articles from The Athletic. I read him emails from his boss saying, "Take your time, we're holding your spot." "Did you hear that, baby?" I whispered, leaning close to his ear, careful not to bump the tube in his trachea. "Your job is safe. You just have to wake up. Just open your eyes." The only response was the hiss click of the ventilator. Hiss, air goes in. Click, chest rises. Hiss, air goes out. Click, chest falls. It was a mechanical mockery of life. A machine was breathing for him because his brain had forgotten how to tell his lungs to work. Day 8, the visitor. I was dozing in the uncomfortable recliner chair when I heard a commotion at the nurse's station. "I just want to see him for a second," a voice pleaded, a voice I knew. I walked out. It was Mark, the friend, the reason my husband was in this bed. Mark was fine. He had a cast on his left arm and a few scratches on his face. That was it. He was standing there, alive, breathing, standing on his own 2 feet. When he saw me, he crumbled. "Sneha," he sobbed. "Sneha, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, sir." I looked at him. I should have felt anger. I should have wanted to scream, to scratch his eyes out, to ask him why he was drunk, why he called my husband, why he was alive when my angel was dying. But I felt nothing. I was a hollow shell. "Go home, Mark," I said. My voice was dead flat. "Please let me just..." "Look at me," I said, stepping closer. "He is in there fighting for every breath because of you. If you go in there and he senses you and his heart rate goes up, I will kill you. Go home." Mark turned and ran. He limped away down the hallway. I watched him go, feeling a cold satisfaction. I didn't care if he was hurting. Pain was a currency and I was bankrupt. Day 14, the false dawn. This is the cruelest part. This is the part where the writers of my life decided to twist the knife. The doctor came in during morning rounds. Dr. Evans. He was a good man, but he had eyes like a shark. Dead, black, emotionless. "His intracranial pressure has dropped," Dr. Evans said, checking the monitors. "The swelling is going down. This is unexpected." My heart leaped into my throat. What does that mean? Is he waking up? "It means that his brain is trying to heal," Dr. Evans said cautiously. "We're going to lower the sedation, see if we can get a response." They lowered the drugs. I stood by the bed, gripping the rail so hard my fingers turned white. "Come on, baby," I chanted. "Come back to me. Come back." And then his finger moved. I swear on my mother's life, his index finger twitched. Then his hand closed slightly. "He moved," I screamed. "Dr. Evans, he moved his hand." The nurse rushed over. "I saw it," she said, her eyes widening. Then his eyelids fluttered. "He's opening his eyes." I was crying, laughing, hysterical. "He's coming back. Oh God, thank you." I leaned over him. "Honey, it's me. It's Sneha. Can you hear me?" His eyes opened, but they weren't his eyes. They were glazed over, fixed, dilated. They looked through me, past me, at something on the ceiling that wasn't there. There was no recognition, no spark, no soul, just empty biological optics. "He's tracking. I lied to myself. He's looking at the light. Dr. Evans stepped in. He shone a pen light into those beautiful, empty eyes. He didn't smile. He turned off the light and sighed. Sneha, he said softly. He's awake, I insisted. He just needs time. That wasn't a conscious movement, Dr. Evans said, destroying my world in 4 words. That was a seizure, a reflex. His brainstem is firing random signals because of the trauma. He's not in there. I collapsed. Literally, my legs gave out and I hit the linoleum floor. The nurse had to help me up. They upped the sedation again. His eyes closed. The hands stopped moving. The hope was gone and it took a piece of my sanity with it. Day 21, the infection. Things went downhill fast after the false dawn. He developed pneumonia. Hospital acquired. His lungs already weak from the crash, filled with fluid. His fever spiked to 104. They packed him in ice. Literal bags of ice from the cafeteria tucked under his arms, around his neck, trying to cool his boiling blood. I sat there changing the ice bags, my hands freezing, watching him shiver. Fight it, I commanded him. You don't get to die from a stupid germ. You survived a semi-truck. You are not dying from pneumonia. I was angry now. I was angry at God. I was angry at the truck driver. I was angry at my husband for being so damn heroic. Why did you have to be the hero? I whispered to his feverish face. Why couldn't you just be selfish for once? Why couldn't you stay on the couch and eat popcorn with me? I started bargaining, the desperate, illogical bargaining of the grieving. God, take my legs. I don't need them. Paralyze me. Just let him walk. God, take my ability to have children. I don't care. I just want him. God, take 10 years off my life. No, take 20. Give them to him. But the ceiling of the hospital room remained silent. No deal was struck. Day 27, the talk. Dr. Evans asked to see me in the family room. Everyone in the ICU knows the family room. It's a small, windowless room with a box of tissues on the table and pastel paintings on the wall. It's where they take you to tell you it's over. I walked in. My parents were there. His parents were there. Everyone was crying. I was dry-eyed. I was in combat mode. No, I said before Dr. Evans even sat down. Sneha, please sit. I said, no, you're going to tell me to pull the plug and I'm telling you no. Dr. Evans looked tired. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Sneha! His kidneys have failed. He is on 100% oxygen support and his oxygen levels are still dropping. His heart is beating only because we are pumping him full of epinephrine. He paused, looking me dead in the eye. We are not keeping him alive anymore. We are prolonging his death. We are torturing a corpse. The word slapped me across the face. Torturing a corpse. He is not a corpse, I screamed. He is my husband. He is 29 years old. His brain has herniated, Dr. Evans said gently. There is no blood flow to the brainstem and he has been gone since the accident, Sneha. His body just didn't know it yet. I looked at his mother. She was sobbing into her hands. Mum, I asked, tell him he's wrong. She looked up at me, her eyes broken. Sneha, baby, he's suffering. We have to let him go. You're all traitors, I whispered, backing away. You're giving up on him. I won't. I will never give up on him. I ran out of the room. I ran back to his bedside. I threw myself over his chest, listening to the erratic force thumping of his heart. Don't listen to them, I told him fiercely. I'm here. I'm the captain now. We are going to fix this. Day 29, the end of the war. But you can't fight physiology with love. That night, the alarms started going off. Not the rhythmic beeping, but the constant shrill scream of failure. Beep! Oxygen saturation is at 60%, a nurse shouted. BP is crashing! 40 over 20. I stood in the corner, paralysed. They rushed in. They pushed drugs. They adjusted the vent. Nothing worked. I looked at him. Really looked at him. His skin was grey. His lips were blue. His body was bloated from the fluids. He looked tired. He looked so incredibly tired. And suddenly a calm washed over me. A terrifying, cold calm. I realised Dr. Evans was right. This wasn't my husband. My husband was the man who danced with the vacuum cleaner. My husband was the man who built me up when I was broken. My husband was dignity and grace. This meat puppet on the bed, this wasn't him. I was keeping him here for me, not for him. I was being selfish again. I was making him suffer because I was too scared to be alone. I walked walked over to the bed. The nurses were frantic, preparing the paddles again. "Stop," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the chaos. The doctor looked at me. "Mrs. Sneha!" "Stop," I repeated. "Don't shock him again, please. Just stop." The room went silent. The only sound was the screaming alarm. "Turn it off," I said, pointing to the monitor. The nurse reached up and silenced the alarm. "Now, just the sound of the ventilator." Hiss. Click. I climbed into the bed. I didn't care about the rules. I didn't care about the tubes. I crawled into the small space beside him. I wrapped my arm around his chest. I put my head on his shoulder, right where it fit perfectly for 2 years. I could smell the antiseptic, but underneath that, faintly, I could still smell him. Sandalwood. "It's okay," I whispered into his ear. "You can go." I felt a tear slide down my nose and land on his cheek. You fought so hard, baby. You did so good. But I've got this now. I'll be okay. I promise." I lied. I wouldn't be okay, but he needed to hear it. "Go be with God," I choked out. "Go build that treehouse. I'll meet you there." I nodded to the doctor. He moved to the side of the bed. He reached for the switch on the ventilator, the machine that had been the soundtrack of our hell for 30 days. "Ready?" the doctor asked softly. I squeezed my husband's hand one last time. I memorized the feel of his fingers. "Yes," I whispered. Click. The machine stopped. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. The room held its breath. I waited for him to gasp, to fight for air, but he didn't. He didn't struggle. He just drifted. His chest rose one last time, a shallow, shuddering breath, and then stillness. Absolute, final stillness. I watched the green line on the monitor. It was flat, one long, continuous line, the bridge between life and death. He was gone. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just lay there, holding a body that was rapidly cooling, staring at the white ceiling tiles, feeling the universe tearing itself apart in slow motion. The war was over, and I was the only survivor left on the battlefield. But the story doesn't end with death. If only it were that simple. Because the dead get to leave, the living, we have to figure out what to do with the silence they leave behind. Walking out of a hospital without the person you walked in with is a specific kind of trauma. It's an out-of-body experience. It was 4 a.m. when I finally stepped through those automatic sliding doors. The air outside was crisp, biting. The city was still dark, but the horizon was starting to turn that bruised shade of purple before dawn. I stood on the curb, clutching the plastic bag of his personal effects against my chest like a shield. My car was still there, parked crookedly in the emergency lane where I had abandoned it hours, or was it lifetimes ago. A parking ticket was tucked under the wiper blade. I stared at the ticket. I started to laugh. It was a dry, hacking sound that scraped my throat. A parking ticket. The universe had just taken my husband, destroyed my future, and ripped my heart out, and the city of New York was worried about a parking violation. The absurdity of it was suffocating. I drove home in silence. No radio, no sobbing, just the hum of the tyres on the asphalt, the same asphalt that had taken him. When I unlocked the apartment door, the smell hit me. Sandalwood. Coffee. Him. The apartment was exactly as we had left it. The popcorn bowl was still on the coffee table. The throw blanket was crumpled on the couch where he had been sitting. His shoes were by the door. It was a museum of a life that no longer existed. I didn't go to the funeral. Well, my body went. I wore the black dress. I stood by the grave. I shook hands with people whose names I couldn't remember. I heard them say the scripts. He's in a better place. God takes the best ones early. Time heals all wounds. Lies, all of them. If he's in a better place, why isn't he here with his wife who loves him? And time doesn't heal wounds. It just turns them into scars. Scars don't hurt as much, but they never go away and they never tan. That was 43 days ago. Now, we are back to the present, back to me sitting on the floor of this bedroom, staring at the dust motes dancing in the sunlight. You might think the scary part of the story is the crash, or the hospital, or the flatline. You'd be wrong. The scary part is the silence. It's deafening. It has a weight. It presses down on my eardrums until I want to scream just to break the pressure. I see him everywhere. I see him in the kitchen, flipping pancakes. I see him in the hallway, fixing a light bulb. I wake up in the middle of the night, reaching for him, and my hand hits the cold, empty expanse of the mattress. And for a split second, that cruel, groggy second before reality boots up, I think he's just in the bathroom. Then I remember, and I die all over again. But there there is one final piece to this puzzle, one final twist that the universe saved for the very end. 2 days ago, I finally worked up the courage to go through the plastic bag from the hospital. I dumped it out on the bed. His wallet, his watch, the bent wedding ring, and his phone. The screen was shattered. A spiderweb of cracks obscured the glass. It had been in his pocket when the truck hit. I didn't think it would work, but I plugged it in anyway. I sat there watching the battery icon, red, then yellow, then green. It powered on. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I felt like I was breaking into a tomb. I unlocked it. His wallpaper was a picture of me. I was laughing, eating gelato in Central Park. I looked so happy. I looked like a stranger. I went to his texts, nothing new. I went to his photos, nothing I hadn't seen. Then my thumb hovered over the voice memos app. He used to record reminders for himself. Buy milk, call the insurance guy. I opened it. At the very top of the list, there was a recording. Date, the night of the accident. Time, 10:12 p.m. That was 15 minutes before the crash. He was on the side of the road. He was waiting for the tow truck. Why would he record a memo? My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I stared at the play button. Did I want to hear this? Was it the sound of the crash? Was it his last screams? I couldn't do it. But I had to. I needed to know. I pressed play. There was a hiss of static, the sound of wind rushing by, cars passing on the highway. Then his voice, clear, calm, warm. Hey, babe. I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. It was like he was in the room. So Mark is passed out in the passenger seat. Idiot. The tow truck says another 20 minutes. It's freezing out here. He laughed. That soft, rumbly laugh. I'm just standing here looking at the stars. It's actually kind of beautiful. You can't see them like this in the city. A pause, just the sound of the wind. I was just thinking about you. I know you were mad I left. You were right. I should have stayed. We should be watching that movie right now, he sighed. But I wanted to tell you something. I didn't say it properly before I left. I know the last 2 years were hard. I know I pushed. I know you were scared. His voice dropped an octave, becoming intimate, serious. But these last few months, Sneha, they have been the best months of my life. Seeing you happy, seeing you love me back. It was worth the wait. It was worth every fight, every cold shoulder, every tear. If I died tonight, I would die the happiest man in the world because I finally got to be your husband. For real. I couldn't breathe. I was gasping for air, tears streaming down my face, dripping onto the shattered screen. Anyway, he continued, his tone lightening up. I'm going to wrap this up. My fingers are numb. I'm going to grab Mark a water from the trunk. I see some headlights coming. Maybe that's the tow truck. The audio spiked. A loud rumble in the background. Whoa, that guy's moving fast, he muttered. Then a sound that will haunt me until my last day. A sharp intake of breath. Hey, watch out! A screech of tyres. The phone fumbled, a loud thud, and then silence. The recording kept going for another 10 seconds. Just the sound of the wind. Then it cut off. I sat there in the silence of the bedroom, the phone clutching in my hand like a lifeline. He saw it coming. He saw the truck. And his last thought, his last recorded act on this earth was to tell me that he was happy. To tell me that I hadn't wasted our time and to validate me, to absolve me of my guilt. He didn't die angry. He didn't die thinking I was a burden. He died loving me. I looked at the bent wedding ring on the bed. I picked it up. I slid it onto my thumb. It was too big, but I didn't care. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. The sun was fully up now. The world was moving. Why does God test us? I used to think it was because he was cruel, but maybe it's to teach us the value of the present. I spent 2 years fighting happiness because I was scared of losing it. And when I finally accepted it, I lost it anyway. The lesson isn't to build walls. Walls don't stop the trucks. Walls don't stop death. The lesson is to break the walls down while you still can, to love ferociously, recklessly, openly, because you never know when the recording is going to cut off. I am not okay. I won't be okay for a long time, but I am alive, and because I am alive, I have a job to do. I have to live for him. I have to be the person he saw in me, the person he died believing I was. I'm going to go to Italy. I'm going to sit in a cafe and order 2 espressos, one for me and one for the empty chair across from me. I'm going to build that tree house, even if I don't have a tree. I'm going to say I love you to my parents, to my friends, to everyone until they are sick of hearing it. Because if there is one thing this tragedy has taught me, it's this. We are all just standing on the side of the road, waiting for a tow truck, looking at the stars, and we never know when the headlights are coming. So please, if you are listening to this, if you have someone sleeping in the other room, someone you've been holding a grudge against, someone you've been too proud to forgive, put down this story, go to them, wake them up, hold them until they complain, tell them everything, because 43 days ago, I had a perfect husband. Today, I have a bent ring and a voice memo. Don't wait until the silence is the only thing you have left. I'm Sneha, and this was my story. Thank you for listening.